When things start to feel really uncertain, when we don't generally feel safe, it's very normal to feel stressed. And this very reaction, while it's really there to protect us, it can cause us to feel all sorts of uncertainty and havoc inside. And it makes us feel a lot of conflicting information is around us. So at times, stress can really lead to anxiety. Now, stress and anxiety are often used very interchangeably, yet they're quite different from each other. So, stress is a response to a threat in a situation. Excuse me. Stress is a response to an external cause. So this could be maybe you have like a deadline at work, or maybe you're having an argument with a family member. And when that subsides, the situation is eventually resolved. That stress also reduces. While anxiety is a reaction to the stress, and its origins are really internal. Anxiety is actually characterized by a persistent feeling of fear or dread in situations that are not actually threatening. And unlike stress, anxiety actually can continue to persist even when the concern has passed. So, in more severe cases, anxiety can actually escalate into an anxiety disorder. And that is the most common disorder in mental health in the United States. So, where does anxiety come from? How do we start to get anxiety? Where does it go from stress to something different where we're experiencing that level of anxiety? Well, a large part of it comes from a sense of what we think we should be able to control, but we can't. And right now, many of us are feeling very worried about COVID-19, the known as the coronavirus. We may feel helpless about what will happen or what we can actually do now to prevent further stress. And the scale and unpredictability of this global event, so unprecedented, may bring up experiences of uncertainty and danger. And this can evoke lots of different feelings, such as maybe you're feeling shocked, confused, frustrated, worried. This uncertainty might also connect to our uncertainty about other aspects of our lives, such as maybe caregiving roles, or remind us of past times where we didn't really feel safe and that immediate future was really uncertain. So many of you indicated that you are caregivers yourself, and caregivers are more vulnerable to higher levels of stress and anxiety because of the strains that you're in currently due to caring for another person who often cannot perform some, if not most, of their daily activities on their own. And in times like these, our mental health can really suffer. So we don't always know what's actually happening. And you might feel more on edge than usual. Maybe you're feeling helpless, angry, sad. All of those feelings are okay to be experiencing. You might notice that you're more frustrated with others, or you want to maybe completely avoid any reminders of what is actually happening right now. And for those that may already be suffering from some mental health, you may feel more depressed or more anxious to carry out your day-to-day activities. And it's really, really important to know that we are not helpless in light of all the current news events that are going on around us today. We can always choose our response. So if you are struggling, there are things that you can do to take care of your mental health and manage your anxieties in the face of uncertainty. The most important takeaway is that you need to take care of yourself first so that you can take care of anyone else. So there are a few different ways that we may be thinking right now, and maybe some of the different images on the screen resonate with you. So there's lots of different potentials for negative thoughts or irrational thoughts that might be running through your head. And here are some different suggestions for alternative coping strategies that you may be able to utilize in order to cope with those thoughts. So if you are thinking something along the lines of, I want to run away, my thoughts are racing and I feel keyed up, a more helpful way to cope would be to soothe your worried feelings by decreasing any sensory information around you. So set boundaries. Set boundaries with how much you access media and how much you're consuming social media. And this helps you to really reduce those negative thinking patterns. Perhaps you're thinking, I feel immobilized. I don't feel like doing anything and I can't motivate myself. It's okay to feel that way. This is a very unprecedented event. But perhaps a more helpful coping strategy could be to try to support your mood by increasing your sensory information. So this means connecting with other people. Even with social distancing, excuse me, Even with social distancing, you can still connect to other people through virtual means, and maybe create a schedule for yourself, some type of routine, so that you have something that keeps you going throughout the day, something that you have already set in stone that you can check off. And lastly, maybe you're thinking something like, I feel disconnected. I compartmentalize negative feelings and really avoid addressing them. A more helpful coping strategy would be to maybe make some time to really reflect and connect with these difficult feelings in just smaller doses. Some people really love journaling and getting an opportunity to put all the stuff that's on their mind on paper. Talking with a friend or a family member could also be useful, and trying to move on to something lighter when you're starting to feel overwhelmed, and then coming back to it when you're in a more calmer place. So how do we manage stress and anxiety? So I'm going to start the conversation off by talking about some key points that could maybe be useful as you think about your day-to-day life currently in the context of COVID-19. So the very first thing that you want to do is separate what is in your control from what is not. And there are things that you can do, and these are the things that are helpful to focus on. So you can wash your hands. You can remind other people to wash their hands. You can take your vitamins, drink water, drink plenty of water. These are the things that are in your control. Also, you can limit your consumption of news. You don't really maybe need to know what's happening on a cruise ship that you're not on. So really thinking about what information you want to take in. Next, do what helps make you feel a sense of safety. And this is going to look quite different from person to person. So it's really important that you try not to compare yourself to other people. For example, maybe you decided that you're not going to leave your house, that you're going to order all of your groceries online, and that's okay. What you really want to make sure you're doing, though, is separating when you are isolating based on the potential for sickness because of what's going on, or are you isolating because it's part of some more depressive thoughts that you're experiencing. The third thing is, and I said this a little bit before, excuse me, set boundaries with media consumption and social media. You know, a lot of people have indicated that they're spending quite a bit of time right now on different media platforms because it's always available to us. We can access it literally any time of the day, but we don't need to be on all the time. It's usually not helpful. So identify the most important communication channels and manage how frequently you engage with them. So for instance, you can uninstall some of your social media apps from your digital devices, and this will definitely decrease your usage. Or maybe you decide that you're going to block social media for a few hours a day on your browser so that you just do not access any social media during those hours. I also know that some people have found it really helpful to schedule a time when they're actually going to go on social media. And this could be really, telling yourself, okay, from 12 to 1 o'clock every day, that's my time to go on social media. So it's really set, and then you don't spend the entire day just logging in on your phone or laptop or iPad. I think an important takeaway with screen time is really to limit it before bed, because that could be a really vulnerable time. And we know that an increase in screen time before bed can actually increase anxiety and make it really difficult to have good quality of sleep. The other thing to take away is how information is constantly and rapidly changing right now. And all the news outlets are really providing constant coverage. So really consider what media consumption is right for you. You want to be informed, you want to be updated, but you don't want to be overwhelmed. So perhaps you decide, I'm going to get all of my information from CDC, which is a reliable resource. And similar to social media, consider maybe setting some limits or specific times of the day when you're going to obtain news updates, so you're not constantly Googling things or looking at things as thoughts come through your mind. And the next thing that is so important, especially in a time like this when many of us are probably spending majority of our time at home, is to make sure that you're still getting some movement. So we know that exercise helps with both physical and mental health. And I imagine that for many of you, it's probably really difficult to think about how to get in any type of exercise when probably a lot of your responsibilities have increased tremendously due to the quarantine. Maybe you have taken on some extra roles and responsibilities. Maybe you are also working from home while taking care of others in terms of your caregiving role, but maybe also kids and other family members. And so try to think about creative ways that you can get some type of movement in. Maybe you can do a family workout, or think about how you can maybe go up and down the stairs when you're on the phone with somebody. Maybe while you're cooking or doing work, you can take some steps. So, think a little bit about maybe what you're already doing, or think about something that you can start tomorrow. And we love to hear from you. You can type into the chat box something that you are planning to start doing tomorrow that's going to involve some movement. Next is to challenge yourself to stay in the present moment. It's very likely that a lot of your worry is starting to compound right now. Probably you're not only worrying about what's currently happening, but also starting to project about worries into the future. What's going to happen in June, July, August, with maybe some things with your job, or with events that you were supposed to be attending, or maybe events that you were planning, maybe also different roles that you have as a caregiver. An important thing to do is try to pause and allow yourself to gently bring your attention back to the present moment when you notice that your thoughts are starting to drift to a lot of those worries. A good way to try to do this is noticing some of the different sights, maybe sounds, tastes, and other sensory experiences that are in your immediate moment, and labeling them. And this is what we call a mindfulness exercise. And later on in this conversation, you'll actually get a chance to try out a mindfulness exercise with one of our speakers, Neha. The next thing I would really emphasize is staying connected. And so social distancing makes it really challenging to think about how we can still connect to others. But luckily, we still have a lot of our virtual means. And so while self-isolation, social distancing, all of this can bring up a lot of feelings of boredom, frustration, loneliness, it can be really helpful to maintain a sense of belonging by engaging with others in more planful ways. And so maybe you can schedule time to communicate with friends, classmates, maybe coworkers or family members. There's a lot of different ways that you can do group video chats, calls, text people, email, really just trying to think about ways that you can stay connected to others. And I think an important thing to remember is that a lot of people are home right now, whether they're doing lots of different roles or not. So you can usually maybe catch someone much more easily than you might have been able to in the past. So thinking a little bit about how maybe you can virtually have a meal together and being a little bit creative with that. Also, continue to see if you can still engage in things that were enjoyable for you or meaningful for you. So maybe you engaged in previous religious or spiritual activities. So there's actually a lot of things being offered in virtual spaces, and seeing if that could be an option for you. And lastly, it's important to think about making a contingency plan if that could be useful for you. And in a way, it's kind of thinking about how you can plan to cope ahead in case something happens to you or someone else that you are taking care of. Because once you have a plan in place about what you may do or who else may take on a responsibility that's currently your own, there is an opportunity to feel at more ease because you've already planned out what you're going to do in that moment. And lastly, if you are feeling particularly anxious, or if you're struggling with your mental health, it's absolutely okay to reach out to a mental health professional for support. You don't have to be alone with your worry, and it can be very comforting to share what you are experiencing with those who are trained to help.